centres. Do we stay? So there's nowhere to stay. Okay, so we need to keep going.
Yep.
I think you just have to manage
for sure.
the best you can, and whilst maintaining the safety of everybody else. And I would be quite cutthroat and say, if the guy makes it at the end, you've done well.
Yeah, which is fine if you're cuffing it. If you're going on a weekend expedition with a couple of guides who have done basic first aid training, then they would be required and expected to improvise. But when we're putting a healthcare professional into an expedition, then you would expect a different level of care. Whilst they might not be able to provide the same level of care expected of them in a health centre or an ambulance, you would expect, depending on the risk, that they would be able to improvise and provide some sort of extended care, depending on their training, above and beyond that of a first responder. Obviously, somewhere like Everest, that's a whole other conversation. Hopefully we can have an interview with some of the girls from Everest Base Camp. Rachel, perhaps she can come on and talk to us about that. She did a couple of seasons there. But, if you are operating at your physical limits on Everest, you're hypoxic, and you're doing everything you can just to stay alive and keep one foot in front of the other, then you really can't bring any more care to a patient. Or can you? It's another conversation. It's a moral conversation, an ethical conversation, a logistical conversation. But if you're on the river, if we know the next section is flat for 2 days and it's the only way to get out, then potentially you can provide extended care. And the healthcare provider can dedicate themselves to the care of that patient over a prolonged period of time, which might include extended analgesia, antibiotic prophylaxis, maintenance of their temperature, glucose levels, hydration, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
However, as you just mentioned, Chris, if all of a sudden we're hitting class 4+ rapids, then it's going to be everything the medic can do just to hang on and stay alive. And his focus is going to be on managing and contributing to the risk management of the boat crew, as opposed to focusing on taking vital signs. So it really is a balance. It depends on the environment.
Now, if we talk about class 4 rapids, there's normally on class 4 rapids, there's always a chance to walk around. So you don't need to, we would have to just think, can we carry the person around the rapid? Do we have to portage? Or do we have to run the rapid with the body in there? So those are decisions you're making on the way.
Yeah.
Again, all this goes back to the basics. And then you have to think, am I going to continue running rapids? Or am I going to send an advanced team to give communication? Or are we going to decide to, kind of run the river slowly, taking care of the patient? Those are decisions you're going to make according to where in the river you're at. How far am I? Am I on day 1 from the 7 days where I have no communication?
Yeah.
Am I on day 4? Am I on day 6? If you're on day 6, I would say get the kayaker to go and just get an ambulance and have an ambulance ready, and then prepare the person and slowly start getting them close, or maybe there's a way to get them out. Or just go ahead and then the kayaker, let's say it's 3 o'clock, you only have 2 hours of light, you're in the canyon, and you got to get going. And I can't sleep there. My call is get a kayaker and a raft to get going.
Yep.
And go set up camp somewhere.
Okay.
And let's move this raft slowly to camp.
Yeah.
And so now we know these guys are advanced. They're going to set up a nice camp, comfortable, so we can maintain, the care to the patient. Next day, it's a whole different day. You have energy. You
can relook at your situation.
Exactly, and then you replan, and then you make a new plan, and you think, all right, well, we're not working under pressure. We got up at sunrise. We see around. We can see that there's just a little hill.
And your mission focus has changed now to, we're not doing another 3 days. We are now focused to getting this person to this next point, which is 6 kilometres away.
Yeah.
That is now the mission focus has changed. Everything could slow down.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it
plan.
simple.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even, I know you touched on portages. If you think in Alaska, some of the portages are like 12 kilometres long. It's not just out around a rapid, it's long portages. So you've then got to think, we've still got to move all the gear along the portage trail. Then we've got to do the patient. Do we do it in dump stops? You've then got a portage plan with a casualty.
And it's really manpower and resource intensive. Whether you're going to walk around the rapids or you're actually going to walk out to a predetermined rendezvous point. We saw it last weekend. Trying to move a casualty by yourself is nigh on impossible. You're carrying a dead weight, you're travelling over uneven terrain, slippery rocks, you're going to break an ankle. Now we've got 2 patients. 2 patients require 4 people to carry.
Or snakes.
Yeah. So you need to kind of consider how we're going to move this patient. It's all well and good saying we're going overland, either around the rapids or to the predetermined RV point. But how are you going to do it? Do you carry lightweight stretchers? Are we going to make a stretcher from wood or from paddles? Taking paddles away from the boats, will that affect your safety in the boats? Can we make, as we did last weekend, a hypothermia wrap, which obviously prevents hypothermia, immobilises the patient and provides a platform for up to 6, maybe 8 people to carry the patient and distribute the weight, provide a more stable platform. But again, it's manpower intensive walking out. 6 to 8 people. We observed an evacuation from Aconcagua, albeit we're talking altitude. Back then, I think it was around about 20,000 feet of that. But it was 16 rescuers who were rotating around this one patient. It's just exhausting, absolutely exhausting. Slightly different coming down from altitude, but still very tough going through a humid jungle, right?
Yeah.
Extremely tough. So what are you going to do? Take a prefabricated commercial stretcher or make one with your machete and the local wood or paddles from the boats? Or you've got to have a plan. It's all well and good to say we're going to move from here to here with the patient. How many people do you need? Have you practiced making the hypothermia wrap or the improvised stretcher platform? So there's lots of consideration. But let's say we've managed to walk out, or we've managed to create a base camp, and we've managed to send signal a person, or we've managed to establish satellite communications, and we've linked into the local search and rescue provider who happens to have a helicopter. We've got appropriate insurance, but there's nowhere for the search and rescue helicopter to land. They may have short-haul capacity, or they may have winch capacity. Let's talk a little bit about putting in a rescuer, a paramedic, who may or may not do a little bit of stabilisation, or might just, using the hierarchy of rescue, just pluck the patient off the rock and evacuate them. Do you want to talk a little bit about the short-haul process and benefits, considerations and risks?
Word of the week again, it depends. Normally most search and rescue helicopters have a hoist or a winch, depending what continent you come from, what you call it. Short haul is predominantly used, for example, like in Guatemala, some counties in the USA, where they use the sheriff's helicopters that don't have a winch. Short haul is actually human external cargo. It's under the FAA Part 133, Part D, which people forget. You're classed as cargo. Essentially, it is a rope suspended on the helicopter, and we can move cargo, people, patients, all this kind of thing. Used extensively in some of the remote areas in America, like I've said, very effectively. It's used a lot by firefighting teams to put firefighters in, that kind of thing. And the idea is we have a specific rope. It's not just any old rope, suspended to the helicopter's cargo hook with a secondary release system, because we've got real people on it. And we can fly and insert normally 1 or 2 rescuers with a stretcher platform to any given location. Normally search and rescue, it's not an air ambulance, it's not critical care. Search and rescue, the clue is in the title. It's there to locate you and get you out to the next level of care. It's part of the chain of survival, essentially. So very often, very limited interventions are done on scene. Even though most countries, the guys on the end of the ropes probably are paramedics or at least an EMT level. Only really Australia is kind of doctors do this kind of thing, but they're mainly hoist operations. They will come in, they will do a quick stabilisation package and go. Obviously time is money, risk, all that kind of thing. Very often you see, as we've seen here in Guatemala, people see it on YouTube, become a specialist overnight. They use the wrong rope, they learn how to rappel, so they use rappel ropes, which is the wrong rope. It's dangerous. Pilots have to have a cargo license. If it's a private company, it needs to be a cargo operating because you're classed as cargo, which people forget. And as a crewman's point of view, it doesn't really make it. We try and not cut ropes on people. However, the helicopter's priority. When I teach the SOS guys, when we're doing rappelling next week, part of their ground school, is if there's a problem, yeah, we'll try and make it safe for you, but we're number one, because at the end of the day, we're going to have to come back and get you, and we don't want to crash on top of you and kill all of you. So it's very misconstrued. It's very safe. For example, when the German tourist, we flew Max. When I first met Max and the patient about 8-9 miles off the top of the volcano to the nearest landing spot. We then put them on the ground. We then land next to them, hide all the ropes in the helicopter, and then we flew them to the hospital. We came back for you, did the same, flew to the same field, landed. You had a bit of a harder landing than them.
It was more like a parachute landing.
And it's a very good system. It's a very safe system. The great benefit is hoists are really quick, but they're really expensive. They are limited on length. Whereas short haul, you can pretty much buy the length of rope you need for your environment. We use about 4 different lengths, depending where we're going, which is part of the pre-planning. When Max rang up me the other week to say he was doing a rafting, one of his clients had a specific blood disorder or whatever. I know what river he's on, so I know we can take this length of rope, because that will fit in all those sections. However, in the back, we'll take the really long one in case we're in a canyon. So it is risky. Anything to do with helicopters is risky. A part of the planning process, you need to look at, have they done it before? Are they qualified? Most pilots will probably say, yeah, let's go, let's give it a go. But are they trained? Are they in date? Are they current? Is the crew current? Do you know our hand signals? So when I say don't hook up and you hook up, you've now caused an additional problem. You need to work together and get that team cohesion.
So ideally, we would let the external crew do their job. The helicopter crew as a team would do their job, and our medic and leader on the ground wouldn't interfere unless we had that interoperability and authorisation.
Yeah, pretty much. Helicopters are totally independent. They will turn up, do their own thing, and then go.
Yeah.
If they know you, always pays dividends to come and visit. Not that we're not less likely to come and get you, but you've got that personal interface. We know you, we know your capabilities. We may even then have your cell phone number if it works, so we can communicate just a bit more information so that we can then identify where you are, what the patient is, and do we need to arrange a ground ambulance, maybe, especially at the minute because of weather. We might not be able to get you back to the city where the best hospitals are. However, if we know it's a severe casualty, we can relocate an ambulance, or we can RV with a critical care ambulance. We can do the next stage of planning, which takes you as the guys on the ground. You've not got to worry about it. Typically, we would fly in, helicopter would do an orbit to try and find you. So signalling is a key thing. people don't realise how small you are from the air.